Let's have a look. What's going on with this? Oh, there we go. So I just went to strike this one, and that one just slackened right off. Good morning. Welcome back to Frugal Outdoors with myself, Dylan. It's 9:15 and we've hit it bang on low tide. We're well into November now, so I thought what better time to come out and try and do a catch and cook for a bream. We might not get one, but we'll give it a good go. I've got all the bait and I've got all the gear. I say all the bait, I've got one squid. I've got one squid and I've got the right rigs. So let's get set up. First things first, we need to try and catch one. So let's try and do it. So I've been asked quite a few times to do a catch and cook for a bream. And I've kind of been putting it off because we haven't got the biggest kitchen in the world. And I know I need to set multiple cameras up to do it, just to try and do it some justice. So let's have a go anyway. So first things first, rods, fishing with my Daiwas, and today I'm actually going to fish with the right tip in the right butt section. Reels, I'm using my Shimano Power Arrows, and I've got them loaded up with 58-pound braid, a 60-pound leader, because this area I'm fishing is notoriously snaggy. And what I've done is all of my rigs are really simply tied rigs with a couple of weak points in them, basically where I've tied my snood on, so that if I get snagged up, I'm going to get the majority of my rig back. So let's have a look at the rigs. Right, so majority of these rigs I've already taken out. They've already been used and just put back in the bags. I do tend to use my rigs for more than one session. If things start getting rusty or the points get dull, then obviously I'll replace some of the components. But essentially, we're fishing with a bream rig with a size 1 Canoe hook, and it's a 1 up, 1 down. Some of them have got pop-ups on, some of them haven't got pop-ups on. But let's put this one on for a minute, which actually has got a couple of pop-ups on the top. As you can see there, we've just got a blood loop knot, which is a really easy knot to learn. Quite fiddly to begin with, but it's really easy. So that's the rig I'm using. Let's get some bait on it. The bait of choice today, one nice big squid, Kraken sea baits, slamfish, Isle of Wight, down at Odessa's boatyard. Now these squid are really, really tough, these big ones. They make perfect strips for bream fishing. So unfortunately, we haven't got a whole bunch of bream fishing left this year, but while they're still around, I'm going to make the most of it. So all I'm doing is cutting a little strip, just like that. Have another one, just like that. We'll get this one on, get it straight out. Tide should be just about to turn, so perfect timing. Snood on the bottom. Just loop that on there. So this squid is really tough. The thing with bream is they do peck at your bait quite a bit, like little piranhas, and they'll keep pecking at it and pecking at it, and they do a pretty good job of cleaning a hook of bait without getting hooked. There we are, size 1 Canoe, nice little strip of squid. Let's get the other one baited up and get it out. So looking out there, it does look like the tide is still on the ebb a tiny bit. So we'll just punch this one straight in front of us, and then we can see which way the tide's moving. We don't have to belt it, but let's just chuck it out. Probably aiming for about 60 or 70 yards. Or maybe a bit more. Feel for the bottom. And there we are, on the bottom. Right, to double our chances, let's get another rod baited up and get that out as well, and hopefully we can catch a bream. Getting a bite already. been in the water for maybe 5 minutes and that rod's going. Let's get the other rig baited, sit on my hands for a minute. Let's not strike that until it's really going. And then to cover a little bit of ground, this one I will drop in a little bit closer. There we are. Right, let's hopefully try and get a bream. Oh, there we go. Getting bites on both rods at the moment. There we go, that's a nicer one. Go on. It's just a case of which one goes over first at the moment. If one goes over. Let's have a look. What's going on with this? Oh. There we go. So I just went to strike this one. And that one just slackened right off. And there we go. Bream on. First chuck. See the other one going too. Oh, that is a lovely bream. Perfect. And there we go. That is a perfect bream for the table. So the next time you see this one, it's going to be in the kitchen. There we go. Welcome to our kitchen. Welcome to Frugal HQ. So just got back. We've got our bream there. We'll give it a quick clean, get the guts out, and then we'll be ready to take the fillets off the side. So here's our bream. Beautiful plate-sized bream. Now this is only how I do it, but the first thing I always do when I catch my bream, most of the time I gut them on the beach, but for the purposes of a video today, I brought it home. So I'll chuck it in the sink, cover it in water. There we go, that's plenty. I always scale it in the water at home just to stop the scales from flying all over the kitchen. Now you can use just the back of your filleting knife, just using it from tail to head. You can easily get the scales off just like that. But what I tend to use is an actual scaling tool, we'll call it, descaling device. So again, you just grab hold of the tail, keep it in the water, and then just rub the tool backwards and forwards, and it will just take all these scales off. There we go, one side done. Try and get all the way around it because the scales do hinder the filleting process quite a bit. So as you can see, doing it in the water, the scales literally stay in there. There we go, it's done. Next thing you want to do is grab the point of your knife, put it in its anus, and cut all the way through in between those fins, right up to underneath the gills there. And as you can see, this is so fresh, look, it's still bleeding. And just pull everything that's in there, pull it all out. So you've got the stomach cavity, you've got the kidneys in there, the heart in there, you've got a liver in there as well. Pull it all out, just as it's hanging out there like that. Grab hold of it with your fingers, pinch it really, really hard, and just give it a yank. And there it is, all out. Quick rinse in the water, and there we have it, all cleaned. Now you can just bake that whole, just slice across the skin there, rub some seasoning in it, put it on a tray, stick it in the oven, stick some lemon, stuff like that in the cavity, bake it whole, absolutely delicious. Wrap it in foil, do whatever you want to it. For the purposes of today, we're going to take the fillets off. Much prefer cooking just the fillets. Personally, I like a nice, clean mouthful of fish with no bones, and that's what we're going to do today. There's probably a few different ways of doing it, but this is the way that I'm going to do it today. And one thing I would say is you do need an extremely sharp knife. So spend the time on trying to sharpen that knife because it really will make a difference. First cut I'm going to make, let's say I am no fishmonger. I'm just someone that enjoys catching fish and eating. First cut, you'll see on your bream, you'll see that the flesh comes down in a V over the skull, and that's basically where we want to cut. We want to make sure that we get as much as that as we possibly can. Straight down the side, straight behind that fin. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the head clean off. For me personally, I just find it easier. One twist and it's off. Now, when you're filleting, one of the sides is much harder to get off than the other side. It's just the way that your knife runs across the bones. This is the easy side, so let's do the hard side first. And we're just going to go in from the very top. I'm going to try and follow those bones down the backbone, down the spine. You'll feel them as you come in along, all the way through. And at about that point, you can go straight through and cut. And then it's just a case of running your knife bit by bit at slight angles. So basically, you're following the line of these bones. You'll see the backbone there, the one that runs down the centre of the fish. And then what we want to do is, if you can see what I'm doing there, I'm just feeding that last piece off, because through here, these pin bones can be a bit of a pain. So we're just going straight through the pin bones now, and then we're just going to follow the ribs. And then there we are, one fillet clean off, and that's the harder one. So this one really now should be a bit of a doddle. It's much easier because you're working towards yourself. So again, we go in at the top. In a little soaring motion, we just come all the way down, following the line of the bones, straight through, lift it up. And then we're just going to do exactly the same now. Just going to use that knife to feel the bones. I'd say this is why it really does help to use a really sharp knife. Just want to slice those ones, because basically this is the pin bones there that we're just cutting through. And there we go. And there we are. That is fillet number 2. And as you can see there, you can see right through that there's not a lot of flesh left on that whatsoever. There's a little bit on the belly, but to be honest, when you trim up the fillet, you would trim that off anyway. Right, our next job, now we've got our nice 2 fillets, is we want to take the pin bones out. Now I've bought these, it came with that descaler, nice little set, pair of deboning scissors. So basically you'll feel them as you run your finger down the middle, and then they stop around there. So probably 2/3 of the way down, you've got little pin bones, and all you want to do is grab your tweezers and just pull them out. Because this fish is so fresh, it does tend to take a little bit of the flesh with it, and then just leave those bones on the side. And you do that all the way down, and then we will have a very nice, beautiful, boneless fillet of fish. There we are, that's one done. And if we're being a little bit fancy, we'll just take some of this, we'll just trim up this fillet just a tiny bit. So there's one beautiful boneless fillet of bream. We're just going to take the bones off of this one now, and then we'll get on to the second part of our dish. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make basically like a bean stew. So really, really, really easy, super simple, and it's relatively cheap. We came up with this recipe basically because we had a glut of courgettes. So the bulk of it is going to be some butter beans. We're going to use a courgette from the shop, obviously, because we're out of season now. Half a red onion. Doesn't matter if it's red or not, to be honest. 1 clove of garlic. Some cherry tomatoes. And some frozen spinach. Frozen spinach is awesome for cooking with. We love putting it in curry. But basically, 2 blocks, 1 per portion, frozen spinach. So like I said, we only want half an onion. Any colour really, it doesn't matter. And we're just going to finely slice it. We're not going to do anything particularly fancy, it's literally just slice. Right, just push our onion to the side. And now we'll have some garlic. This is actually our own garlic. Elephant garlic, it's a massive, massive clove. So normally we'd put 2 cloves of garlic in this, but this is going to be perfect. Because it's quite big, we'll just cut that in half. Try and crush it. Ugh, so hard. Doesn't have to be really, really finely chopped or anything. This is quite a rustic stew. This bit. We'll just slice. That'll do. Right, so we're just going to put a little bit of oil in there. Turn that on. Medium heat. So we're not frying this. We don't want any of this fried really. This is a stew. So basically it's a slow cook, low and slow. Cook the vegetables, but we're not adding any colour to them. While the onions are cooking over there, half of that courgette will be fine. Again, this is nothing fancy, so we just cut the courgette in half again, and then we're just cutting it into little pieces, just like that. And as soon as that starts to fry, once those onions are softened, we'll add our courgettes to that as well, including the ones on the floor. So courgettes there, spinach is there. All we need to do now is chop up some tomatoes, which we'll add right at the end. And all we're going to do is just quarter those. Right, they're starting to soften nicely, but what we do want to add is some oregano, some dried oregano, mixed herbs or anything. It doesn't have to be this. We've literally just made this recipe up. So, and what we will have going in later is some of this really nice smoked paprika. It's a smoky stew. Right, let's add our courgettes. Now we'll add a bit of salt, because the salt will get some of the liquid out as well. A bit of pepper, quite a bit of pepper. I do like a lot of pepper. So there we go, it's going to look something like that. When those courgettes start to soften, which they already are, you can see the onions are really soft now. So now we'll add half a teaspoon of our paprika. This is a sweet smoked paprika, so there's no spice to that whatsoever. You can add some nice fresh chilli to this as well. It really does make a difference. We haven't actually got any. What have we got here actually? Do you know what? I've got a dried chilli there that we grew, so let's pop some of that in. There we go. We're not going to drain these beans at all. We're just going to crank it open, and we'll just pour the whole lot of the contents of that straight. You can see the colour coming out in that already, look. Right, then we're going to go straight in with those butter beans, and then it will really start to come together. Look at the colours, wicked. Pop our spinach in, and then basically, so now that spinach is in, all we need to do now, we'll pop a lid on it. The heat from the stew will obviously defrost and melt all that spinach. It will run straight through. Then we can chuck our tomatoes on, and then we'll just take it off the heat. That is then finished. So there we go. That's been blipping away for about 2 minutes. You can see those cubes are starting to break down. We'll give that another few minutes, and then basically this part is done. And then we'll get straight back onto the fish. Right, there we are. Look. Spinach is all breaking down, running all through it. So now it's time to chuck our tomatoes in. We stir those through, and then we will take that off the heat because I want quite a bit of that liquid in there as well, because it's part of the dish really. There we go. Jobs are good. Right, next pan. Let's bring back the fish. Bring back the fish. Right, I've just sliced that one. Just do this other one. All I'm doing, really gently, not all the way through, at a diagonal, same direction that you made that first cut when we took the head off. Just so we can season that, oil it, season it, and then also one thing, it will stop it from shrinking, stop the skin from shrinking when it hits the heat, but also it gets a little bit more of the seasoning in there. A little bit of oil. Really don't need a lot of oil at all. Nice bit of seasoning. Nothing worse than unseasoned fish. Pepper. They're quite chunky, aren't they? There we go. Now we want this pan to be reasonably hot. I would say a low to medium heat. You don't want it too hot because the thing is it will blacken the skin. You want the skin to go crispy, but you don't want it to be too hot because otherwise it will crisp up the skin, but then the flesh of the fish won't be cooked. So we'll place that in. And you see straight away that will curl just because it's really fresh. So all we're going to do is keep that pressure down, and you'll feel it give. It will stop doing it, and that means we're getting all the skin with full contact in the pan. But you don't want to be frying this in oil. Oil the fish. It's the same with steaks or anything like that. Oil the meat, not the pan. There we are. They're going to be nice. You can see already. See, all I've done is oiled that fish. You can see how much oil is actually in the pan. Because believe it or not, Bream has actually got its own fat content as well. There's quite a lot of fatty meat in the belly, and as that cooks it will come out into the pan. Pop our stew back on the heat. So what we're looking to do with this is basically we want to cook this until pretty much most of the flesh is cooked all the way through, and then we'll just flip it over to do the very final piece of cooking. So this will be pretty much white cooked all the way before we flip it. So there we go. Now as you can see, we've just got the top piece that just needs to be cooked, and now when we flip it, I'm going to turn that off the heat, so that is just going to cook under its own heat that's left in the pan. So there we are. Fish is cooked, stew's cooked. Let's plate it up. There we are, look at that. This is what we're looking for. So the liquor in it has started just to thicken ever so slightly as the tomatoes are broken down. This is going to be nice. I can smell that paprika. And there we go. Served with a beautiful, crispy skinned, freshly caught bream. So there we go, all dished up. We're going to go and get this down our necks and wash it down with a nice glass of rosé. I hope you enjoyed this. I haven't done a catch and cook for a very long time. And it's really quite difficult. It's not like being on the beach. Much prefer being on the beach. If you like watching people cooking their catch, then please do check out Fish Disco Lincoln. Amazing chef, and he puts a lot more effort into it than I have today. So until the next one, please take care, stay safe, and maybe I'll see you out there. Cheers.